Greetings and welcome back to Doctor Who Revisited, the ongoing series where I go through every episode of Doctor Who and review them. And we've got another big one with season 1, Marco Polo. Unfortunately, though, this is our first example of a missing episode, an episode that can no longer be viewed in its original format because, quite frankly, the BBC were all idiots. Still are, in my opinion, to this day. Just don't get me wrong, but the BBC, this great collection of morons who had no idea what the brilliance of the show that they had on their hand at the time, took a lot of these episodes in their original film sort of coil things and just re-recorded on top of them, re-recorded new footage on top of them, or just threw them away, or some of them just got completely burned in a fire that happened in the BBC archives at some point or another. Either way, the bottom line is all 7 episodes of that serial are gone. Thankfully, the audio version of that episode still remains, and it's kind of weird looking back on it how much content in the world of Doctor Who is just straight up audio. It's amazing how much that franchise really relies on that type of medium, but obviously, as we all know, that particular episode, all 7 episodes were meant to be seen, meant to be shown in a video format, not an audio format. But fortunately, it's one of the most well documented and well photographed episodes from the early era that the powers that be, I should say, were able to pretty much reconstruct the episode by using mainly pictures, rather photos and set pictures that were taken during the filming of the episodes, mixed with the audio and a little bit of helpful dialogue on the bottom of the screen that sort of lets us know what's happening at any given moment. First of all, this is our first, even though we've already traveled to the prehistoric age, this is our first proper, real, historical story. Like I said about the Dalek one, it did not disappoint. They really opened with a bang, both in terms of the set design, the costume design, which was amazing. Obviously, this is another one of those Doctor Who episodes from the classic era of the show that suffers, shall we say, from instances of yellow face and white actors playing Asian roles. And on that note, maybe it's a good thing that the episodes are missing and that you can't actually see that part. I have no doubt, by the way, that if eventually this story will eventually get the animated treatment like a lot of the other missing episodes did, that's not going to be an issue. That's not going to happen. We're most likely going to see these Asian characters looking like Asian characters without being without really being racially offensive or inappropriate. But that's not really what we're here to talk about. We're here to discuss the story. Marco Polo as the first really proper, true historical figure that we get to see on the show. Mark Eden, who sadly passed away a year or two ago, I think. Mark Eden nails that role. He really does manage to capture this character and the conflict within him. He's trying to be a good person. He's trying to look after Pink Joe. He's trying to fulfill his duties to Kublai Khan. He's trying to be a good friend to the Doctor and friends. And he's also trying to look after Tigana, even though Tigana tries to stab him in the back at any given point. And yet, he's really conflicted. He misses his lovely home in Venice, and all he really does care about is getting back there until obviously later in the serial, some of the later episodes, where his priorities sort of shift around. I think, like I said, Mark Eden nailing the first ever proper historical figure. He really does set a wonderful precedent for future historical figures that came after him. And all of us who love Tony Kern's portrayal of Van Gogh and Simon Callow's portrayal of Charles Dickens. Apologies, I can't remember the name of the actor, but the person who played William Shakespeare, obviously Ian McNeice as Winston Churchill. All of these historical figures portrayed by these actors, they really do owe a lot of their start to Mark Eden. The fact that he was able to bring this character to life in such a beautiful way is the main reason why Doctor Who still to this day, even more recently with Mary Seacole, the show continues to bring back these historical figures and doing justice to them for the most part. At the very least, they did that with Marco Polo. And obviously, I mentioned him before, Warlord Tigana, played by Darren Nesbitt. Even though he's not the first, he really is the quintessential Doctor Who villain, in my opinion. He does that so well. He really, even though again we don't see the performance much, we only get to see pictures and we're mainly just guessing his facial expressions, but he just nails this villain character so well. And I'm assuming he did in the original format of the show when you actually could see his proper facial expressions and you get to see the portrayal and the performance of the character. But he's also very well written, and that has nothing to do with the fact of this episode being missing. The fact that he does the character that is does the things that he does in the story, and obviously Darren Nesbitt's voice portrayed in the audio version of the episode. He's just an incredible villain. He's, again, not really the first, but just so good as a major villain. He's always several steps ahead, and he continues to stay several steps ahead of the Doctor and friends. The Doctor and friends don't really suspect him much at first. His conniving genius mind and how he continues to manage to plot and outwit not just Marco Polo, but the Doctor and companions in every single step along the way, and yet still somehow the Doctor and friends manage to catch up to him before he can come up with another new plot, sort of overthrow the mighty Kublai Khan. And obviously, it all comes into a head at the very end of episode 7 of the serial, which unfortunately, again, we can't see the sword fight, the legendary sword fight between Tigana and Marco Polo to save the life of Kublai Khan. Even though we don't really get to see that, the build-up of emotions between those two characters all throughout the 7-episode arc is enough for me. And I can imagine, because it's my imagination, I can probably imagine a much more epic sword fight than what fight choreographers in the show in the 60s could have imagined. I apologize, but yeah, even though I love the first season, and I love the fact that there is action, again, it's still 1960s fight choreography, which is not on par at all with any of the fight choreography you have in modern shows today, especially in Doctor Who. The death scene, spoiler alert for a 50-year-old episode, 60-year-old episode, but the death scene of Tigana, it's so well earned when it eventually happens, and it's so satisfying and shocking that it happened the way that it did. And on the subject of historical figures, the Kublai Khan himself, I can't remember the name of the actor who played him, but it does also set a different precedent of historical figures in Doctor Who, where they're being presented as these big, important characters that just sort of become lovable goofballs after the first impression has been given. And I like the sort of friendly competition between him and the Doctor. At first glance, it would seem that him and the Doctor wouldn't really get along very well, but just, I don't know, the first Doctor just has a sort of charm about him, being able to relate to this extremely old, important historical figure, and they just really have a lot of interesting, fun time together. And unfortunately, we don't get to see the Kublai Khan very much in the episode. We only get to see him in the last 2 episodes, but this episode is really, really well done. start to finish. Again, I love the all the different conflicts. First of all, it's one of the biggest journeys in a Doctor Who episode, physically, that is, going from one city to the next. In each city, there's a different story. It's almost like, in a way, and I promise I'm not doing that because of the Asian setting, but it's kind of like a Pokemon game in a way, going from city to city. Each city has its own unique flair and flavor to it, and each city and different setting adds something new to the story. We get the story of Aladdin and the Cave of the 500 Eyes in one city. Then we actually get to see the Cave of 500 Eyes. Then there's the whole story with the Oasis, and then there's the bamboo forest with the fight taking place over there. Then we finally get to Shantou, I believe that's the name of the city, or Peking. Again, there are a lot of cities to remember in this serial, and that's one of the things I really do struggle with. But yeah, when we finally get to to meet the Kublai Khan in the second to last city, and then there's the final part of this seven part serial with everything that I mentioned earlier in the episode. It's a very heavily dense episode, and that's really what I like about it. And again, I wish I could see this episode in the proper way that it should be presented, with the magnificent costume designs and the set design and the drawings, the cave drawings in the Cave of 500 Eyes. And again, Warlord Tagana. I wish I could see Darren Nesbitt's performance there, and Mark Eden's performance as Marco Polo. But sadly, this is just one of those episodes where we're going to have to continue to imagine. And hopefully, maybe someday, it'll get the animated treatment. And something else I wanted to finish off before if I wrap up the episode is the Pink Cho storyline. There's a reason I saved that for last, because I barely even remember it. It's not really brought up, the story of Pink Cho. It's really slightly mentioned offhand in the first episode, and then it really comes into a head in the final two episodes. And it's unfortunate that that storyline, that subplot, wasn't given more time to breathe. It would have made this whole story much more coherent and flow much better, instead of just bringing up that storyline, which is a valid storyline to bring up, but just tacking that on at the very end of the 7-part serial, as if it almost came out of nowhere. That's really one of the major negatives I can say about this episode, is that that storyline in particular wasn't very paced very well. But other than that, really, really solid 7-part episode. Great villain, great historical setting, great historical figure, and just really, really good Doctor Who storytelling at its best. So that's all I can say about this 7-part serial for now. Unfortunately for me, things do not get easier from here on out, because we're no longer going back to these 2-part stories. We've got several 6-part stories going forward, and I can't wait to talk about that when I get a chance to. But I'm just gonna take my time by watching some more Doctor Who episodes from season 2, and I'll be back with some more season 1 reviews later. Not sure when, but later. So thank you all for watching if you have, and I'll see you next time talking about potentially my favorite story in season 1, The Keys of Marinus. Goodbye for now. Hi there! Thank you for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.